Hello, this is Erin, and welcome to Seek the Magic, where we uncover the magic in the everyday. This morning, while I was working out, I was listening to another podcast by a psychologist and his son, and they were talking about shadow work, which, if you're familiar with Carl Jung, he established shadow work as that exploring the part of ourselves that is hidden and or suppressed and we feel ashamed of or we don't think is good for society to see. And that part is identified because it's an important part for us to explore if we really want to feel whole. And if we do not explore and reconcile ourselves with that, then we will often be confronted with our shadow in painful or not as manageable ways, such as, getting triggered by something or being in a situation where we feel like we can't fully be ourselves, be vulnerable. And it's important for us to explore that within ourselves, the parts of us that may not have been as accepted by society when we were kids, and therefore we suppress that part, specifically thinking, don't cry right now, don't be mad, that sort of thing. And, those parts are important to think about, acknowledge, and hopefully get to a point to be able to share with others and explore and accept that part of ourselves. Because when we truly accept it, then we can be more fully ourselves and lead more fulfilling lives. So I listened to the podcast this morning, and then when I was driving to drop my kids off at school, I was listening to music, specifically Bruce Springsteen, which I'm seeing the Bruce Springsteen concert in a little bit less than a month. Very exciting. And basically my song knowledge and depth extent goes to knowing a lot of Bruce Springsteen lyrics and music. And that's basically all I know. And everything else is just additive on top of that and what I heard from others. But anyway, I was listening to the song Brilliant Disguise. And that song talks a lot about relationship between a man and a woman and whether they're truly seeing each other. But I really connected it to shadow work because this whole time he is looking at another person that he loves and he's being vulnerable and he's saying, am I really seeing you or am I seeing something else? And can I trust that? And can I even trust myself? And that really connected to me in terms of how we think about ourselves, look at ourselves, project to others, and, also engage in relationships with others. It's such a complicated thing when we're exploring not only ourselves and the evolving nature of who we are, but then also, how that evolving person interacts with other people, whether it be in a marriage relationship or, a friendship or any sort of other relationship. It's just a complicated, evolving dynamic. And I think music just can get to the core of that. And I would say I am extreme Bruce Springsteen fan. I think he's absolutely brilliant in terms of his work and how he expresses things. And he weaves in, religion and his past and all these different things. So there were a few lyrics that absolutely stood out to me. First of all, just, is it you, baby, or is it a brilliant disguise? When you're looking at another person, are you really thinking, are you really seeing who they are? Are you seeing part of them? Are you truly seeing the core of them or just a projection? And, can you really trust that, especially in a love relationship, but really in any relationship, when you're looking at another person and making a connection, you're being vulnerable and you're putting yourself out there. And you're exposing part of yourself. And, the question is, are you really seeing the other person for who they are? Do they feel secure enough about themselves to share that with you? And how does that process evolve throughout the relationship? And he starts out by asking the woman whether this is her or a brilliant disguise. And then at the end, he flips it around and says, is it me, baby, or is it a brilliant disguise? Like, am I really showing myself, or am I showing a projection of myself? And, is that a question for her? Is it a question for him, or is it a question for both? But I think that that's beautiful and striking as well, because, there are moments where we're questioning, are we really showing our full selves to the other person? How can we show more of our full selves? What will that do to the relationship, how will that help us evolve? And ideally, in a world where we are dynamic and helping each other grow and evolve, that those things will be accepted and we can reveal more parts of our true selves, or reveal, ways that we want to grow and talk about our dreams and aspirations, but also, things that came from childhood wounds or whatever. But, how much of that can we reveal, and how much do we want to reveal that to our significant others, to our friends, to family, that sort of thing. So that really struck me as it related to shadow work and exploring different parts of us. Of course, the core lyrics. And one of the other things he says is, look at me struggling to do everything right, and then it all falls apart in the moonlight, talking about the pressure to be perfect, or the pressure to try to do the right thing in order to, follow what we project for the future of our lives. And then realizing that perfect thing that we've built up doesn't exactly come to be. And how do we reconcile that? So talking about, wanting to be loved, be accepted, but then, things happen that are unexpected, and how those things, it's a dual part of the relationship, and we need to accept that we will have imperfections, and that is just a normal part of life. And then there's a part of it that goes, I want to know if it's you I can trust, because I damn sure don't trust myself. And I think that is a beautiful and striking line too, because it goes to the core of, we're always exploring ourselves in addition to these dynamics of relationships. So we look for external places of connection and trust, even when we aren't as sure of ourselves. And that's like a beautiful and dynamic interplay, because we are constantly growing and evolving. And, in order to lead fulfilling lives, it's important for us to grow and explore new things. And it's just part of the life process. But as a result, there are moments of insecurity. There are moments of questioning what we're doing. Are we on the right path? Who are we right now? Who were we? Who are we going to be? And in those moments, as the lyric says, do you really trust all parts of yourself? And, if that is not completely sure, can we rely on other people? And ideally, the beauty is, yes, we can rely on other people, hopefully either, a partner or family or friends or something like that, a trusted relationship that can help us remind ourselves who we are, even in the face of us not necessarily being completely sure of who we are, and that other person and or people can remind us of who we are. But I think that line is very poignant, because it talks about, looking for that in a trusted relationship and other people. Obviously, in this moment, if you're talking about a new love relationship and not truly knowing who you are, it's hard and difficult to seek that, in another person. But if you have a trusted, loving relationship, then, ideally, as you're growing and evolving, there's a person that you can trust and can help reflect, the true essence of who you are and how you're evolving. So I love that line. And the line at the end in concluding is, God have mercy on the man who doubts what he's sure of. And I think that is beautiful, obviously spiritual, reflects the typical nature of Bruce Springsteen to weave in religion into his lyrics, as he was raised in strict Catholic upbringing, school, etc. And so he uses that and infuses it as a beautiful yet ironic way, both analyzing it, but then also, showing that that's still part of his belief system and the way that he connects with others. But have mercy on the man who doubts what he's sure of. Obviously, it's quite a matter of human nature to doubt what we think we know. And, if we don't outwardly doubt and or question, it comes up in some other parts of our lives, either how we relate to other people or, what we see. Doubts pop up. It's just a part of human nature. And so I think by saying, God have mercy on that man, or, the human, it's saying, whether you believe in spirit or not, forgive yourself for doubting some things and forgive yourself for questioning things because it's completely normal. And in that, I would also say, back to the shadow work, it's important to accept that there are parts of yourself that, you don't necessarily want to present to the world, that you're ashamed of, and that it's okay to accept that part of yourself too. And I think that acceptance, that feeling of mercy for ourselves, and then how we engage with others is really important. And that will help us hopefully reveal more of our true selves and be accepting of more of our true selves, and therefore accepting of others that we can truly be with in this, dynamic world of ever evolving humans that are living life and trying to figure out what they're doing. I think the mind would want everything to be, guaranteed and predictable. And I know who this person is, and I know who I am, and I'm on this path, and this is predictable and acceptable. And, that's what the risk averse ego desires, because that is how we survive and stay safe. However, there are other aspects of who we are as humans that desire the beauty and the unexpected. And I think both of those things are important to accept and cherish, even though it may be difficult for our minds to consider that. So finding the magic today is about seeking a place that doesn't seem to be so magical, which is the parts of yourself that you may be ashamed of, or, the part of you as a kid that you were asked to suppress or change, like showing your emotions or things like that. And just being in tune with that part of you and realizing that the whole of you is magical, and acknowledging that part of you will help you be a better, stronger, and more fulfilled and enlightened person. And Brilliant Disguise will help you make better connections with other people, and however you feel like you can show up for them in what you're doing. So Brilliant Disguise aligns with shadow work because what we're projecting out to people is this brilliant disguise, and it is an ever-evolving brilliant disguise. But the more we can show our true selves, the more we will be connecting with the world authentically. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion about shadow work, and I hope you can seek the magic in your day-to-day. Thank you. Bye.